Hello there and welcome to my latest podcast. At the weekend I was struck by the comment from the well-known travel journalist Simon Calder, who declared that he has no further plans to visit Wales after receiving online abuse. It comes to something when a national name in travel feels that he cannot visit or offer or contribute his words or opinions for fear of being abused. During this crisis, I too have received online abuse from a very small section of people who work in the travel industry and even from consumers. So what was my crime? Well, that was simply my either offering a correction to information being given out or quite simply people not liking the advices I had published. My way of dealing with online abuse is simple. I briefly thank the person for their comments. I rarely engage with them. I then block them and report them to the social media platform in question for the abuse I've received. And in rare cases in the past, I have indicated that a report will be made to the police where a threat has been made unless a retraction is provided. In Simon's case, it is clear that some very strong opinions were expressed, and to his credit, he tried to engage and rationalise the debate, all it seems to no avail. Therefore, Simon has made the decision, at least for the present, not to visit Wales. His decision must be respected because it matters not whether you are a high-profile journalist or someone like me who offers a different type of consumer guidance. Abuse is not and should never be tolerated. But the decision by Simon reveals a number of issues buried deep in the heart of this crisis. The primary issue comes from people within the areas concerned about the sudden influx of tourists from the more infected parts of the country, a point that was acknowledged by Simon. Back in March this year, people in Cornwall were concerned about the influx of out-of-towners and the pressure that they could potentially place on the local NHS services, presumably because of the fear of the detriment to themselves. In July, Cornwallians again expressed that they were terrified as a result of the great unlockdown of again the influx of tourists, desperate to get away, some feeling that they would be confined to their homes out of fear of what was being potentially brought into their area. Now, this conflict has continued even after Simon's experience, with people in the towns on the Welsh borders feeling that they are caught between a rock and a hard place. Nervous would be an understatement. The effect of fear is palpable not just in the UK but elsewhere. I know, for example, that in southwest France, local mayors are working very hard to protect their communities. When I inquired with them whether they would accept me into their community, they first checked where I live, which is currently a low risk, and suggested that I arrive and present myself with a set of clear negative tests. In Ireland, I discovered that people who decide to stay on Achill Island in County Mayo found that in order to protect themselves from their fellow holidaymakers, they had to head for the beach by 9 a.m. and be off by 11 a.m, because after that time, holidaymakers in their hundreds flooded the beaches without any care for social distancing, let alone masks, with the local Gardaí trying to control and enforce rules on the influx. Now, like Simon, I too have taken staycations this year. The first was a trip down memory lane to the Cotswolds, staying in Morton in Marsh at the Reddersdale Arms. And that's well worth a stay and a visit, and for the hotel I personally will give them 4+ stars for their COVID measures. And then we also visited Broadway and had afternoon tea at the Lygon Arms there in the main high street, and it was a great tea, and again I would give 5 stars to them for their COVID measures. And in Bourton-on-the-Water, it was quite clear the town had thought hard about its COVID measures, and I would personally give them 4+ stars. I've also taken tour of castles in South Wales, Chepstow, Caldicot, Skenfrith and Magram, all offering a good set of COVID-safe measures. And then I travelled along the coastline from Porthcawl, taking in Ogmore by Sea, Dunraven Bay, St Donats and Llanwit Major Beach, again all providing clear COVID measures. Now, into this mix I've also taken trips up to Brecon and the Brecon Beacons, enjoying the wide open expanses on offer with plenty of distance between people. All of this has been good for the soul, but there is a downside to all of this, and no matter how many travel writers speak about the benefits of staycations or tourist bodies work hard to try and promote their areas, there is one factor that makes it really difficult: holidaymakers. Now, as you know, I primarily speak in support of holidaymakers, but my experience through this post-lockdown period has demonstrated the fears of those who live in these tourist towns. On my staycations, I have witnessed a herd mentality, which is indeed hard to comprehend. We discovered very quickly indeed that if we wanted to limit our contact with people, we had to get out early, visit the key attractions before noon, and be on our way, usually to have a picnic in some big open space, enjoying the great outdoors. On the very few occasions that we were in towns or villages after noon, we experienced large crowds of people, many not wearing masks either in coffee shops, tourist shops or on the street. I witnessed people coughing openly and offering no protection to those around them. Many offered no respect to shops by crowding their way into them without regard to notices on the doors. And it was absolutely the case that many of these holidaymakers would barely offer 2 centimetres of space between you and them, let alone 2 metres. This lack of social awareness and responsibility cuts to the heart of the debate. As a fellow travel writer and commentator, I cannot condone the behaviour from what seems to be the many in favour of some economic imperative. Oh sure, I wish that we could return to normality. Oh, how I miss that in-flight meal or jetting off to some spot in Europe or that long-haul holiday. But since February of this year, I have been warning about the massive impact coronavirus would have not just on travel, but on our lives. In March this year, I predicted that summer may not happen, and that I expected to return to some normality by the end of July. How wrong I was. So whilst international travel is virtually at a standstill, we are looking for that replacement for a getaway, even if it's only for a day. But we do not live in a bubble. This is not a crisis that is external to our borders. It is a crisis within, and it seems that we have not yet come to respect that, nor indeed those around us. The simple fact of the matter is this: travel, whether it's domestic or international, is in deep crisis, and will remain so in my view until mid-2021, when perhaps the advance of a therapeutic medicines or indeed a fully tested and viable vaccine is available. Now, even if a vaccine is available, it will take some considerable time to spread that benefit out to the citizens of any country. The journey to 2019 levels of normality will take time. If we feel the absolute need to travel, then perhaps we should assume the position of responsibility and stay even closer to home, because that's where I suspect local undiscovered treasures exist. Now, I have every sympathy and indeed solidarity with Simon, but it is my view that whilst we can offer a glimpse into travel possibilities, it is not our job to create COVID foot soldiers to return us to normality. That is the job of government, to create sound policies that builds confidence in communities. We should remember that at the core of this debate lies the very structure of political discourse, which includes the recent trend of shying away from multilateralism. In other words, cooperation, and indeed brotherhood, amongst the citizenry, even across borders. People expressing their disgust for a travel writer are actually expressing their own fears, in my opinion, in the wrong direction. They are telling us that they are not convinced that there is a coherent strategy to protect them, let alone the businesses in their areas. As a result, they strike out at those who simply offer a glimpse of some form of normality. The guilt for their views of failure lies firmly at the door of number 10, and in particular with the Ministers for Health, Tourism and Consumers. Now is the time perhaps for us to rediscover that multilateral effect. In my opinion, it will free us from the dogma of late and develop the solutions to reopen our borders without fear for all to enjoy. Until the next time, take care.